Well, we find a security problem with it, and Canada is going to make a decision at some point. We're not using Huawei, and we're really some of our great companies are getting much involved with 5G right now. But no, we find a tremendous security problem with respect to Huawei.
That was U.S. President Donald Trump speaking during his bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the sidelines of the NATO summit in London. Right now, Canada is mulling whether to ban the Chinese firm Huawei from its next generation mobile network, known commonly as 5G. The U.S., Australia, and New Zealand have blocked or limited Huawei, citing national security concerns. But Canada might also be weighing China's current detention of two Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Khan Velshi is the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Huawei Canada. He joins us now from Toronto. Hi, Mr. Velshi. Nice to see you. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me again.
I wanted to start off with the decision that the federal government is anticipated to be making sometime in the future on Huawei's participation in this country's 5G network. The Liberals said they kind of punted it towards after the election. We asked the Department of Public Safety today, and a spokesperson told us that the review is still underway and, quote, "We will ensure that our networks are kept secure and will take the appropriate decisions in due course." How has the uncertainty over that decision affected Huawei?
I mean, I think it's important that the government take the time to get the decision right. And, they clearly have undertaken a process, and we're going to be respectful of that process. At the same time, we have a business to run, and we continue running that business while doing what we can to provide whatever information the government needs to reach whatever decision it ends up reaching.
Do you have any expectation on the timeline?
I'm afraid I don't. Your guess is probably as good as mine.
And has there been any correspondence between your company and the new Minister of Public Safety, Bill Blair?
No, there has not yet. I do anticipate us reaching out to his office at some point in the next little while.
What is the is there an impact on the fact that a decision hasn't been made on your bottom line, or is sort of operating under the status quo feasible for you?
I think at this point, none of the operators in Canada have deployed 5G technology. And so, there are spectrum auctions that still need to take place before that becomes a reality in Canada. And so at this point, we're still operating in a 4G world and kind of a 3G, 4G world. And so we continue selling equipment to our existing customers, as we have always done, obviously working with the government and various security agencies with respect to the programs related to those sales.
Do you think this is going to be a decision based on technological considerations, or do you think this will be a political decision?
I have confidence that the government of Canada, that the experts in the government of Canada will not allow politics to sway their decision-making process. The information that we've received from our cooperation at the officials level is that they're taking very seriously the importance of 5G towards Canada to making the decision right. And so our view at this point is that we have every reason to believe the decision will be made based on technology.
There is, of course, a great political consideration for the federal government right now. You're as aware as I am of the deterioration of the relationship between China and Canada following the arrest of your company's CFO, Meng Wanzhou, in Vancouver about a year ago. Over the weekend, she posted, I guess it's a blog on Huawei's website. I just want to read a passage. She says, "Right now, time seems to pass slowly. It is so slow that I have enough time to read a book from cover to cover. I can take the time to discuss minutiae with my colleagues or to carefully complete an oil painting." Was this blog post tone deaf?
Look, I mean, I don't think that someone who spent the last year under house arrest, I don't think is, a polished public relations expert. She's describing what she's going through. She's describing what she's feeling, and she communicated that to our employees and to others. I'm not going to characterize it beyond that.
In light, though, of what's happened to Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, who remain detained and have been for over a year, I think they haven't been able to even see their lawyers. We know that they're under some duress. I'm not exactly sure of every condition that they face, but it's not a comfortable situation for them. Should your company have posted something like this?
I mean, I think, look, with respect to the two Michaels, our position has been clear. We're concerned about their treatment, and we hope that, the two governments, our government in Ottawa and the government in China, can figure out a way to get the relationship back on track and bring them home. At the same time, it's the 1-year anniversary of Meng Wanzhou's detention, and she has every right as, a CFO of our company to express what she's feeling and to describe what she's undergoing to our employees. And, I think at the end of the day, I haven't walked a day in her shoes, and so I'm in no position to judge what she does.
No, I understand that she has the right. I guess my question is more aimed at the fact that while this will be a decision eventually that's based on technology, at the same time, there is a perception of the relationship between Canada and China and your company in this country now because of the last year that could very likely inform what the government ends up doing. And my guess is Canadians who have been following the detention of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, detained under the conditions that they are versus the conditions that Meng Wanzhou has faced, would be disheartened to read something like this.
I mean, I think I agree with part of the premise of your question that this whole situation, this whole mess has become increasingly politicized. Just about 2 weeks ago, we had President Trump sent some of his officials to Canada to try to bully us on decisions related to 5G. Just over the weekend, the Globe and Mail published a truly remarkable piece of investigative journalism where they found that Donald Trump's disgraced former national security advisor John Bolton was behind the original decision to extradite her.
Is that your company's belief as well?
I have, at the end of the day, I have total confidence in the reporting of Bob Fife and Steve Chase, so that's the first thing. I've learned not to question their reporting through long, hard, bitter experience. However, it is consistent with the position that we have always taken at Huawei, that Canada has been caught in the middle of a trade dispute between President Trump and China. That is to say, at Huawei, we've never said that Canada was sort of a willing, active, or participant in this. We've always felt that Canada was dragged into this and is a pawn, just like we believe that Meng Wanzhou is a pawn and everyone else affected by this trade dispute is a pawn in this Donald Trump trade dispute with China. And all we can do, as a company, is hope that the relationship between Canada and China is not allowed to further deteriorate in the face of what's happening between the U.S. and China.
If it is the belief of your company that this is all because of the U.S., has that been communicated to the Chinese government?
I mean, I'm honestly not sure, what communications take place between Huawei and kind of, foreign government in China. Certainly, the position that our founder, Mr. Ren, has taken publicly in interviews with the media has been that he bears no ill will or ill feeling towards Canada for detaining his daughter. Quite the opposite. He feels a great deal of sympathy for the position that Canada has been put in. I think we all do. And his hope that he continually expresses when he's asked by reporters is that he just wants to get the Canada-China relationship back on track, and that's why
But my understanding is there is a relationship between your company and the Chinese government to some degree. Has the CEO or has anyone else in your company raised the idea that this is not Canada's fault with the Chinese government? Obviously, I'm asking because the Chinese government doesn't appear to have that position, doesn't appear to be on the same page.
I mean, look, I'm not sure what you mean by there's a relationship between Huawei and the Chinese government. Huawei is a private company in China. I realize that's sort of an unusual situation in a Chinese context, but it's a private company in China. And I would imagine its relations with the government there would be similar to any one of its subsidiaries' relationships to the government in their jurisdiction. So, we're in daily contact here in Huawei, Canada. Daily, probably a bit less than daily, certainly weekly, with officials in the government of Canada, and I would assume that the GR team up in China would do the same with the government there.
The concerns raised by the United States, for example, is that the relationship is so close. That's why people should be worried, they argue, about letting Huawei into 5G networks.
The United States, I find, certainly the Trump administration talks out of both sides of its mouth on this issue. On the one hand, Donald Trump sends his heavies to Canada to bully and lecture Canada on decisions that we should be making, that Canadians should be making, asking
Our
the Canadian
intelligence
government
networks
to be
are very
tougher.
intertwined, though.
So, well, let me just finish my point briefly. So, telling us about decisions we should be making, but at the same time, in the U.S., they're offering exemptions to Huawei with respect to, delays and 90-day delays on the entity list. So, in Canada, he wants, tougher treatment of Huawei, but in the U.S., they continued to make it easier, grant exemptions for U.S. companies to do business with Huawei. So in many ways, he wants Canada to suffer the consequences of this rather than Americans.
It's not just President Trump, though. It's many Democrats as well who have come out with concerns about your company.
Look, I think that there's a bipartisan nature to what's happening in the U.S., but it's very clear that it's Donald Trump and his aides, like John Bolton, former aide John Bolton, who have been driving this because they continue being caught red-handed, including by the media. They can't help themselves.
Okay, I have to leave it there. I'm out of time, but thank you very much, Mr. Velshi. I appreciate your time.
So happy to be on.
Khan Velshi, Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Huawei Canada.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.